Hello guys, and welcome back to John's Workshop, and in this video we're going to do some workshop storage, which after all that shaper excitement over the last few weeks is going to be thoroughly boring, so I apologise in advance. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a pressed steel construction shelving unit, and I want to make this my fixture racking, if you want to call it that, for chucks, vices, rotary tables, dividing heads and all those types of things, certainly on the lower shelves, which are currently either blocking drawers up, stood on any horizontal surface that I can find, and in some cases on the floor, which is not good. So I want to tidy all of that up and try and start on tidying the workshop up a bit, as I've mentioned in one of my previous leather videos. So I bought this because its size, it will just, I hope, fit in the space that I've got set aside for it. We'll find that out as we go along. It can take up to 175 grams of shelf, as I've said, so it should be fairly robust. There's no fixings in this, so this is all pressed steel construction, so you basically just bang it together with a soft mallet, and you'll see some of that in a bit. And why, I think I've already covered that. I'm thoroughly tired of having to move stuff around the workshop every time I want to either get to something, find something. I've completely run out of space and I need to do something about that. So there are all the reasons. Where's it going? It's going to be going where my Taylor Hobson pantograph engraving machine currently is. That's going to get moved out into the shed next door, and hopefully I've got a buyer for that later on this year who's going to come and give that a new lease of life, hopefully, rather than skipping it. So that's all good. And so once we've got that moved out, I can then utilise that space for this racking, which is going to generate it's a tiny little area, but it's going to feel like a huge space once I've got this shelving in place, hopefully. So without any more babbling, I will dig in. I'll show you the raw components as they've come out of the box, and then we'll set about building it and see what it looks like. Okay, so what are we talking about? I can't even tell you the make of this thing because I can't even read it off the box. That's all that's on it, and I think it's something like FCH maybe, or I don't really know. I don't even know if they're letters or just some kind of emblem. I really don't know, so that's not a lot of help. Made in our favourite place, and consists of largely lots of this type of thing, so galvanised pressed steel that all just slots and clips together. And there is also, for each shelf unit, there's an MDF shelf that looks to be about 5mm thick, something like that, MDF, which clearly won't take the 175 kilograms, so obviously there's some supports that go underneath that. So yeah, that's what we've got. I will try and find a bit of space somewhere and we'll start seeing how this thing goes together. We've got some assembly instructions. Again, there's no maker's name on the thing. You know, it's very similar to Dexian shelving, if anybody remembers that, other than it's not a Meccano set with nuts and bolts. Actually, I've read through some of the assembly instructions, really well written for something that's come out of China. Obviously good English, really good English, and pretty well written actually. I've got to say, of all the stuff that I've had from China since I set the workshop up, I think this is probably one of the best transcribed passages of text that I think I've read. It's obviously had some external influence to make sure that it's readable. So there we go, that's what we've got to work with. I'll reposition the camera and we'll see if we can make it look something like that. Okay, so I've made a start and I've put the first bits together. Now these things just clip together. There's a couple of sort of tongs, if you like, on the crossbars that go into the slot and then back into the slot again. They've got to go all the way through, and from what I've seen so far, that's not easy, because you get them through the first one and then they want to pop out on the outside and not go back in on the inside. So I've managed to get these in up on the bench by pressing down with a screwdriver on the tongue and giving this a tap with a mallet. Now that's okay, well these things are in this basic state, but the minute I start joining all of this together into something that resembles the final unit, I'm not going to be able to do that, so we're probably going to have to try and find a different method at that point. I'm not putting the rubber feet on at this point because these things are razor sharp, and if I'm tapping on this all the way up to the top with a mallet, by the time I get to the top I'll have probably sheared through the rubber feet, so we're going to leave that to the end. So I've got two of these in this state, which is the start of the sort of framework. I'm now going to, you can pick up with me on the journey as I try joining those together with the first set of crossbars. So I'll reposition the camera and we'll see how we go on. Okay, we've fitted our plastic feet to the bottom, which was easier said than done. There's another set of these plastic things that are supposed to fit on the top, but if you put this framework right at the top, as it shows in the instructions by the way, and as I want it to get maximum space in here, these don't fit. So we've got some really nice sharp razor edges around the top here that if you're not careful are just going to slice your hands. So I'll give that some thought in terms of what we do with that, but these are just not going to fit, so I'll save them as spares for the bottom for now. So the final job is to fit the shelves, which just sit in on top of the steelwork. There we go. So according to the instructions, this thing can hold 175 kilograms per shelf, which means the bottom span of legs is probably supporting nearly a ton. That's 250 kilograms per leg. I wouldn't want to, I certainly wouldn't trust this with that kind of weight on it. I mean, it's, as a shelving unit for a garage or something, fine. I'm going to have to be careful with the weight that I'm putting on this because I want to put some quite heavy stuff on it. So we'll see how that goes, and I'm going to keep most of the weight down at the bottom and put lighter stuff up at the top for obvious reasons. So my next challenge is moving my Taylor Hobson pantograph engraving machine, so I will bring you back when I've done that and made some space for this thing to go in its final location. Wish me luck. Space, the final frontier. So here's John, one full hernia and 3/4 later after moving Taylor Hobson out the way. And Ian, if you're watching, tune out, otherwise you'll be sending me hate mail. Ian Matthews. Look, I can move about. I've got space to walk, and it's not until I took that out I've just realised what a big bulky thing that's been sat in here for the last 2.5 years doing nothing other than collecting dust and something for me to stand things on. So Bill, if you're watching, two things: it takes up a bit of room, and I think that's the best part of 1/3 of a ton, and I moved that the hard way because I've got no lifting gear that I could get my hands on, so that just got manhandled out of here and into the shed next door, and that was a task. It's a heavy lump. So let me know, Bill, Skip's coming next week for all my other stuff. If that puts you off, let me know fairly soon and I can change the plans. So the big question is, has the space that John's made created enough space for the new shelving unit? Well, let's find out. I know when I measured it up, when I went to order it, it was going to be tight. The moment of truth. Oh, it's looking good. Oh yes, it fits just. So it's made the bandsaw tight, but still operational in vertical mode, and will still be operational in horizontal mode, so I'm okay with that. That's fantastic. The space in here is just, that's transformed the workshop. Getting that engraving machine out and putting that in has just literally transformed the size and shape and space of the workshop. That is unbelievable. Now it's on the slant because my garage floor is all sloping towards the door. That's so that all the water can run out. So what I need to do is get a couple of bits of wood under the right hand end of this. So I'm just going to find something suitable to go underneath that to try and level it up a bit. And I'm also going to have to move my imperial and metric Allen key sets off the wall here, because they're now going to be difficult to get to, so I'll whip those off and we'll figure out where they're going to go after this. So I will get it levelled up and then I'll bring you back when we've started to gingerly put some bits and pieces on it and see what happens. Happy days. Okay, this isn't the final, this is just to get some stuff on here, get it from various places around the workshop where it's been kicking around in the wrong place. So I've got vices and chucks on the bottom, next shelf up, dividing head, tailstock for that, cube, machining cube, got my rotary table, my small rotary table for the mill, we'll up to boring head. On the next shelf, this is temporary, I've got all my ER collets and my Clarkson collets, got my ISO 30 thing. I mean, this is rubbish because of the obviously the restriction above, but for now it's up there out the way. It's got my tools at least on there and not kicking around on top of my roll cabs, which is where they've been for the last few months since I did my spindle. An ER40 collet chuck that is going to get transformed, I think, at some point into a ER40 collet chuck for the lathe potentially, and some big parallels. So that's just it's just some stuff chucked on there for now. Obviously mainly I'm going to have the stuff for the milling machine and the lathe, you know, chucks and vices, and that's the idea of what I want on here. All the collets and tool holders will be coming off at some point, but yeah, what a difference that's made. So that's been a few hours work most of those hours getting that engraving machine out of here and into the shed next door, if I'm being totally honest. The rest of it's gone fairly quickly, but yeah, what a difference. I mean, the space that's made in here is phenomenal. That engraving machine came out to about here, which is a good 2.5 foot in front of where this cabinet is, so I've now got lots of space to move around in. Yeah, it just feels like I've added 6 feet to the workshop. It's brilliant. So overall impressions, I mean, there's quite a bit of weight on there. Now I've got weight on it, it's pretty sturdy, not going anywhere. We've levelled it up for 25 quid, I think it costs, something like that. Can't really go wrong, to be honest. For that price, it's a bit cheap and nasty, but it does the job. I mean, there's I don't know, there's probably 50 odd kilos on the bottom shelf. I bet there's 75 kilos of weight on there up to now, which is nothing like the 175 on each shelf that it quotes, but there's a decent bit of weight on it, and it's fairly rigid. It's not going anywhere. So if I remember, I'll have a look in my purchasing history. I think it was an eBay job. I'll try and find the link if it's still there. I mean, I bought this months ago, so if it's still there, I'll drop the link to what I bought in the description below the video in case anybody else is interested. I think it was about 25 quid, something like that. And yeah, what a good day's work that's been. And apologies for my regulars, there's been no machining, but by the way, that's going to make machining much better in here now. Now I've got access to things and I'm not tripping up over stuff all over the floor. I mean, it's just, yeah, fantastic. It's worthwhile putting the effort in for a little bit of money and hopefully reap the benefits of that effort for weeks and months to come, until I obviously fill the space with something else, which is bound to happen. But yeah, for now, a vast improvement. Well, there we go, guys. Like I said at the start, not the most exciting of videos, and I do apologise for that, but I only get a certain amount of hours in here in a week, and my time is spent doing either projects and machining or doing stuff like that. You know, it's quite limited in terms of how many hours I get. So yeah, not the most exciting of videos, but I hope you found that slightly interesting and certainly it's going to help me in the future be a little bit more organised. You know, that's only one part of my organisation. I've got shelves to go up all round. I've got a lot more work to do just to try and get myself a little bit more squared up in here, so that life becomes much easier and the whole enjoyment of the hobby, which is why I'm doing this, you know, I come out here for enjoyment, that gets tainted if you're forever banging your head trying to find stuff's falling over. There's no fun to be had in that, and also there's an element of risk, especially when they're heavy items as well. So yeah, just making things a bit safer and a bit more easy to work around and a bit more space fundamentally, and not tripping up over stuff all over the floor. So fantastic, I'm really chuffed with that. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and the new subscribers that have come along and those that I may have just lost, and we'll catch you all very soon on another video when we'll be making something else.